This is Sotiris from Septicflesh, and you are watching RichardMetalFan.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of RichardMetalFan Interviews. This is episode number 73, and today's guest we're talking to Sotiris Vayenas. He is the guitarist and clean vocalist for the band Septicflesh, symphonic death metal band from Greece. Today we're going to be talking to him about what got him into metal and what made him want to be a guitarist and singer, as well as talking about the history of Septicflesh. So without further ado, let's go talk to Sotiris. So what's up, guys? I'm here with Sotiris Vayenas from the almighty Septicflesh. How are you doing today, man?
Hi, everything is great. I'm glad to be with you, and I'm ready for discussion.
That's great to hear, man. So basically this format is I want to do a rundown of the catalog as well as your journey as a musician from where you start to now. But before we go into that, I want to dive right back into the very beginnings. What were the first bands that got you into metal? What made you want to be a musician?
Well, I started listening to metal at the 80s at a very early age. So, I got into metal from the standard metal titans, Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Saxon, Scorpions, bands that at that phase. Also Judas Priest, of course, were the pioneers of a new way of British metal. And then gradually, I followed all the ups and downs of the genre. I always liked whatever was extreme, and so when thrash came, I really enjoyed it. Also, when death came, I really was into it, and gradually, I was listening to bands like Celtic Frost, Morbid Angel, Obituary, stuff like that, and of course then black metal, because metal has has done such a long journey, and so I followed the evolution of metal, and I always wanted to express myself, and I had various ideas in my mind, musically and lyrically speaking. And then at that point, I wanted to form my own band and allow these creations to take place in my life. And that was the point that I joined forces with the other guys, and we formed Septicflesh.
All right. And were you in any bands before starting up Septicflesh, or was Septicflesh your first band?
No, I had a band called Cemetery, but it was short-lived. Actually, the songs that I created for the first demo of Septicflesh were intended for Cemetery. But I moved from my hometown Patras to Athens, and so eventually I had to find new band members, and so it was a case of just releasing the stuff at the proper time, because it was everything was really at the beginning with the previous band.
All right. And tell me about that first demo I believe was called Forgotten Path. It just sounds very raw sounding. Where'd you record it at?
Well, back then it was a really difficult time to be a metal musician in Greece, because there was no infrastructure at all. And so we had to use whatever we could. And we went to a cheap studio. We made a live recording. So with very few overdubs, and that's why it's so rough.
Yeah.
Actually, it was an experimentation. It's about finding our steps, and of course we had a lot of rehearsal before we attempted the first recording. But we knew that we had to have some material to send to zines of the time and labels, of course, in order to just present our musical identity. And at first, we were playing a lot like the bands we were listening to. And so the first stuff is really more into death black metal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's sick. And then I want to talk about like the first EP, Temple of the Lost Race. It's just another great EP. What was that whole like going from the first demo to the first EP?
Well, we wanted to make something much better from the demo, and so we decided to have a lot of experimentation with our sound, and also attempting something more melodic. We were not so into following a strict path of music, because even from day one, we thought that why to limit ourselves and play only one style, and just follow our inspiration. And so the EP was a path through a more technical stuff. So we developed the riffs and also the melodies, and it was the first time that what was gonna be the typical Septicflesh melody appeared on the map. Yeah. With songs like Setting of the Two Suns, for instance. And it was a really good release for us, because this release actually gained a lot of interest from other people at the time. And we managed to make an impact to the underground, and so it was a necessary step for us in order for to go on and make something better than the first album.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. And I know with all your albums, you always take like a different approach. It's not like a formula that you guys stick with. Like, and then I love the next.
Yes, because.
Sorry, you're saying.
I'm saying that we like to develop our style and not limit it, and that was something that we did from our early stage of creating music. And of course, now after so many years, our style has been developed a lot. But also the elder compositions indicate that we were focused in this direction.
Yeah, and then of course, like the next two demos, I know you did like a part, kind of like almost like a second one called Tempo of the Lost Race, advanced tape of the mini LP, and of course the Morpheus Awakes. Like, what was those demos like? Like, was there like something to get?
Well, the purpose of those the purpose of those demos was to attract a label in order to make our next step, we wanted to release a full album, and so we decided to create something that will present the best efforts that we have done so far, and wrap it up and present it in a good way to the labels. That was the case, nothing else.
Yeah, totally. And then I think your first label was called Holy Records. This is just from what I was looking up on my archives. They released the debut album, Mystic Places of Dawn. Don, what was that whole like recording process like, making the debut full-length Septicflesh album?
Yes, exactly. Our first label was from France. It was Holy Records. Holy Records had an interest for Greek bands, because at the time a lot of Greek bands started to make some noise to the underground, and so they had signed also Nightfall, and they wanted to give more attention to the Greek scene, and so also they had they received the promo tape that we sent, and they really liked it, and so we had they visit Greece, and we talked, and we met, and it was a really human relationship, and they were really enthusiastic about our kind of music from day one, and so it was an easy choice for us, because we wanted someone that was from abroad, because as I told you, things in Greece were really tough, and the labels were really small and with no power to make your dreams come true. And we decided that a label in France would be a good starting point for us, and it was.
Yeah, and I noticed also up until about Revolution DNA, you just had like program drums instead of like an actual drummer. I was always curious, like, what was the what's the reason for that? Yeah, if you can talk about it.
Yes, we had also some played stuff, but actually the main problem was that the studios that we used at first had a lot of limitations for the drum sound. So if we wanted to have something really live, we would have a really city sound, and also we had trouble to find a permanent drummer, and there were so few drummers that played death metal at the time, and everybody played in 10, 20 bands at once. So it was, it was really, and they were not so equipped, as a matter of fact, to compete with drummers, death metal drummers at the time from abroad. And that was the main reason that we used drum machine. We wanted a cleaner sound for the drums, and also we knew exactly the rhythm that we wanted, and that's it.
Oh, awesome! And then of course the next album is Subtron. Now, usually with the debut albums, you have like a lot of like your entire like life and career to like start writing it. When it came time to write a Subtron, did you feel like pressure to follow up Mystic Places of Dawn?
Well, the pressure in Subtron was that Christos left for England in order to begin his studies in classical music.
Yeah, because it's like
that was the era that he started. Yeah, exactly. And so I had the full burden of creation. I created 99% of the album, I had to play everything to make also, of course, the lyrics. So it was all the burden was on my shoulders for this album. I tried to follow my instinct. Of course, I was a bit overwhelmed because it was our second album, and yeah, we had to push the boundaries, and we had to continue gathering momentum as a band.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I decided to make something really esoteric in order to have strong emotions. And as I was, you know, completely free to make whatever I wanted, you know, the compositions, I attempted some really crazy stuff and songs that were more theatrical, like the end song of the album, and also it was a trip to more ancient times. I'm a big fan of bands like Dead Can Dance and ambient stuff, and so I wanted Septicflesh to have this kind of experimentation towards a more natural and a more also ancient type of songwriting, and that came Isotron.
Yeah, and I know Septron came out literally like a year after Mystic Places of Dawn. Did you like started like writing for Septron right after Mystic Places of Dawn came out?
Well, actually, I write all the time. I don't wait to be pushed like a button, you know, and say that okay, now it's time to write a new song. I write my ideas when they came out, and the best ideas tend to come out at difficult times, at unpredictable environments, and you just have to find a mean to save the idea for later. And so that is also always the case with my songwriting. When I have something that pumps to my mind and I feel that it has the power to become something really good, I just safe keep it, and then I gather a lot of different ideas, and I have a lot of different ideas to start work. So when eventually we are at the phase of entering studio, already I have a lot of ideas at certain points of structures and development.
All right, and then next album, Ophidian Wheel. I love this album. I guessing like after a Septron, did you want to like take your time to start writing and making Ophidian Wheel?
Well, Ophidian Wheel was a celebration because actually Chris was back also,
Yeah.
and so it was a more normal album for us. The job was divided again, and also we had the idea of bringing to the table, besides the more symphonic elements that Christos brought with him, also to have a female singer. It was, you can say, our first attempt to become more symphonic as a band. And we had Natalie Rasoulis, a really great singer that had a lot of potential with her vocals. And so I devised specific melodies and lyrics for the vocals of Natalie.
Yeah.
And it was really a big step from the previous album, as we had all these additional elements. And so it's you can say that the first three albums of Septicflesh are really different from each other.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I know it's like Ophidian Wheel has more of a doomy kind of like gothic thick metal vibe. Yeah, yeah. And then the next album, A Fallen Temple. Well, I think that's a really good album. Another quick turnaround going from Ophidian Wheel to this, and of course, I think it was like you finally had an actual drummer, Kostas. How did he end up being in the band?
Well, the Fallen Temple was a situation that at the time I was at the army, and so I had a really limited time to create new songs for the band, and we thought that it was a good idea to make a re-recording of our first mini LP of the songs, and have a special album that we would combine the songs of the mini LP with new stuff also. And also, you know, because the mini LP was sold out and it was a really rare item to find for our fans. So it was a way to present the material to the fans. And the whole situation was more in favor of this kind of endeavor. And so, on the other hand, we had the new songs that were even more gothic, you can say, and had this kind of strange, clean guitars also. It was an indication about the future of the band. I think that it also opened the door that allowed us to create stuff like in Revolution DNA, the next album. And you know, it was a really special release. I know that a lot of people embraced this release, although it was not completely new stuff.
Yeah.
It has some really great songs from Septicflesh, as The Eldest Cosmonaut, that was a success for us at the time. And also it was our first video clip.
Yeah, and I also love how you did like a French version of the song Telescope. What made you decide to like sing a song in a different language?
Ah, you mean about the next album, the Revolution DNA?
Yeah.
Well, yes. Well, Telescope was an idea of Philippe from the label. As I told you, the label was also fans of Septicflesh.
Yeah.
They really liked the music, and they wanted one song to be translated. They translated it to French, and they wanted to make a special edition for the French people also, and that was the case with Telescope.
Awesome. And I love this album. Like, I know from Ophidian Wheel to A Fallen Temple to Revolution DNA, you guys have been putting out like albums year after year after year. With like you guys were like pretty much were like cranking out music. Then I guess you're on a roll.
Yes, it was a great time for us because we had so much inspiration, and you know, we were really young and really anxious to create albums, and everything was going well, and with each album we tried something different. We didn't felt that we had found 100% the style that we wanted, and so we kept changing styles and attempting new stuff. But at the end of the day, we believe that it's about good music or bad music. So if you create something that has something to say, no matter the style of music that you are making, then your music has power. And vice versa. If you don't have something to say, and maybe you have one style, but it's mediocre stuff, then it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and kind of like breaking away from Septicflesh a little bit. In like 2000, you started a band called Chaos Star. Like, tell me a little bit about that, because I don't think nobody really talks about them.
Yeah, well, it was a point that we thought about splitting the two sides of Septicflesh in two different bands. So we decided to create an album that was more direct, and that album was Revolution DNA, more guitar oriented and more vocal oriented. And on the other hand, the other face of our music, the neoclassical face, was going to be represented by Chaos Star. So it was a division, you can say, of styles. And Christos wanted to have no limits at all to his idea of neoclassical and ethnic compositions. And so Chaos Star is actually the vehicle of Christos. And he asked, of course, also for our help and participation. And so I created the lyrics. I created a specific theme for the whole album. And also, of course, I did also some singing. And Seth also was participating to the album. And so you can say, at least the first album was really a project of really Septicflesh, but in a more symphonic orientation.
Yeah, yeah, and also like that second album, third,
Yeah.
that's another sick album, and I'd really love to hear some more Chaos Star stuff if you got any coming up.
Well, it's a matter of Christos. Chaos Star is his project. Yeah. From time to time, he makes releases. It's a really wild imagination kind of thing, and it's different, more ambient than Septicflesh. It's really good, I think, especially for people that are into more ambient stuff.
All right, and kind of like going back into Septicflesh, 2003, you released Sumerian Demons. I thought this was a pretty good album, and it was also that same year that Septicflesh had broken up. Like, what was the reason for the breakup after
well, in this album, we changed labels, and we went to Hammerheart label. And the problem was that Hammerheart had also signed the project of Chuck from Death. And, it was the unfortunate death of Chuck. And the label had a lot of economic problems at the time. And they affected our release. The album was supposed to be released 1 year earlier. And so we had to wait for the release. And that was not good for our nerves and our psychology, as you can guess.
Yeah.
And we were really really happy with the creation of the album. And we felt that it was the best album of Septicflesh until that phase. And it was a big disappointment for us to have something so strong and have no push at all, to promote it and nothing. And it was a really bad situation, and we felt really strange, and really disappointed. Also, there were some personal stuff that we wanted to do at the time, different for each member of the band. And, Seth wanted also to focus to his artworks and paintings. Then the guys decided to make an experimentation more into more modern type of sound, like let's say like Slipknot kind of sound, different directions. So we had a really messed up situation right there. And we felt that we could not continue in this kind of situation. And so we decided to split the band at the time.
Right. And what were you doing like in between like the breakup?
Well, different stuff. And, personally, I was creating music for a project that I had in mind. Vayenas, it was the name of the project. So I was focusing in this direction with only clean vocals. The other guys had this situation with a project called Devilworks, that it was more modern. And then Christos also continued his studies and started making music for soundtracks and for video games and stuff like that. Seth made a lot of paintings and had some exhibitions around the world with his paintings. So, we had things to do on a personal level. But eventually, as some years passed from the release of Sumerian Diamonds, then came a time that we felt that it was a really abrupt ending for Septicflesh, and we had so much more to give, and we all felt it. And so, as it seems, we returned, and the second phase of the band is also the most successful.
Yeah. Yeah, and then going up to the next album, Communion. Yeah, and what was that like first album, like coming back? And I think this is pretty much like where I think you found your sound. I really love like the orchestral elements and the sound, which is pretty much what's the Septicflesh sound for today.
Well, it was the case that when you have a lot of time on your hands and you become more objective, and whatever you have done starts to make sense, and you keep the best things that you have done and build upon them. And so when we returned, we were really focused. We knew that we reached to a point that we could create a really different sound from any other band. And that was what we wanted, to have one sound that when you listen to it, you will understand that it's Septicflesh from the first note. And we decided to raise the bar, considering our compositions and incorporate 100% the symphonic element, but played with the actual instruments, not using samplers as we did in the past, and especially in Sumerian Daemons. Christos was really confident from that point because he worked so hard all the previous years for his projects, and so he was really baptized to the whole process of using natural symphonic element, and you know, he get acquainted with the Philharmonic Orchestra of Prague, and so we had all the basic elements that we needed in order to initiate our second coming as a band.
Yeah, and I think it's a great like comeback album, one of my favorite comeback albums of all time. And then going
well at the time that we
you're saying
at the time that we created Communion, it was just that we said that we do whatever we want, and no matter if we win or we lose, it is what we want to do. We did not expected that everything will go out well, and you know, it was such a long time since our previous album, and you know, people we didn't knew that they will remember that we exist, for instance. It was a risky move, but you know, it seems that people embraced this move.
Yeah. And then the next album, The Great Mass, hard to believe like last year was like the 10-year anniversary of that album.
Yeah.
Like how do you feel like you guys' songwriting has evolved from this album up until, of course, the latest album, Modern Primitive, which we'll get to in a moment?
Well, after Communion, as we saw that everything turned well for us, we were renewed with power, and we were really anxious to keep working on the path of symphonic death metal, and in the album The Great Mass, and we tried to create something that will be death metal soundtrack, you can say, and we had all these classical ideas on our minds, but also we had a lot of ideas for the guitars, and we wanted to make more groovy type of riffs, and so we had this type of riffing that you hear to songs as Vampire from Nazareth, that it is more groovy, and it's like a hammer, you know, that pushes the whole song, and then we had some really melodic outbursts, and I think that that was the recipe of the success of the album.
Yeah, and the next album is Tight. And then honestly, this was actually the album that I discovered you guys on, and I love it. And I also love the bonus disc or you did like symphonic versions of some of the songs on there. What was the idea of like making like the symphonic versions of the songs from Titan?
There is a lot of love. We love experimenting, as I told you, and we want to give to our fans different glimpses of our art. And when you have restrictions, because you play also metal, you have some restrictions that are because simply you have to cope with different sound shapes that have some conflicts. So when you have ultra huge guitars, sometimes some elements of the orchestra are not so audible. And when you have the luxury of releasing a different version, a symphonic version, then you have all the elements that may distract the listener from the classical elements. You can just erase them and allow the symphonic elements to be on the front all the time. And so it's a type of giving to the fans a different perspective to the compositions. And when someone has both versions of the songs, then he can really understand the differences on the approach and the decisions that we made in order to make the songs and stuff like that. And I think that it's really exciting for someone that is really a fan of the band.
Yeah, and I noticed you also did like the same thing with the next album, Codex Omega, which is definitely one of my favorite albums of 2017, and it's also the first album where you also had your current drummer, Krim. How did he end up joining the band? Because I've been watching his like YouTube videos, and he's one of my all-time favorite drummers.
Yeah, well, also Fotis is an amazing drummer, and when we decided to split the paths, and we wanted someone that could fill the position, and we wanted someone that would be really hardworking, because the songs are really demanding, and we wanted to present to the live shows 100% correct the songs, and the drummer is the backbone.
Yeah.
And especially as we have so many different elements, the drummer is the glue between the symphonic and the metal elements, and also brings the energy to the recordings and to the live songs. We had quite a few options to consider as drummers, because a lot of guys, when they learned that we were searching, gave us their stuff. But when we saw, the reel of Krim, and we also understood that he was a really cool guy to hang in. It's also important, to have someone in the band that you will have a good time, and he will be, in a good character, a positive person. And Krim had all the elements that we wanted. He's ultra professional. He works every day really hard. He's a perfectionist. Never stops trying to push himself and learn something more difficult and more demanding. And so we decided to bring him abroad.
Awesome. So when he joined the band, did you have him like listen to like past albums like Codex Omega, The Great Mass, or Revolution DNA, or Sumerian Demons, be like, this is what you need to do, or did you want him to like bring his own mix to the band?
Well, when we create songs, we have also the drums in our mind. So we gave him specific instructions, but that doesn't mean that we were not allowing him to bring his ideas to the table. Actually, we wanted some refreshing ideas, and his style of playing the drums is quite different from the style of Fotis. He's a more death metal drummer in a sense, and his patterns and his style is more pushing to the more modern sound, and this also affects the guitars and the play of the guitars. And so he had also his ideas, especially in the song The Gospels of Fear, that it was a song that was initiated from his ideas. As a band, I must say that we are a really democratic band, and we allow all the members to bring ideas, not only for the instruments, but also for guitar, for whatever, as long as it seems that it fits to the overall Septicflesh sound and atmosphere. And you know, Krima brought also his style to the band.
Yeah. And like in between the Codex Omega and of course the latest album, you also did like a live album, Infernus Symphonica 2019. What was that?
Yeah.
And you did like a live concert with like an orchestra. Or was that whole idea to like do a concert with an orchestra? Because I know like there's also Dimmu Borgir and Plush Apocalypse did one as well. So how did that whole idea to come to make a concert with an orchestra?
Well, it was something natural for us because the songs have these elements from day one. It was just a matter of logistics and find the right place and the right people to collaborate and make it happen the most efficient way. As you can imagine, it's something really expensive, and you have to be really careful if you do moves like that. And of course, you want to succeed. You don't want to have something that is not successful. And as we found the elements that we were searching for in Mexico, we decided to make the live show. And also, as it was the first time that we attempted the situation in a live environment, it was obvious that it was going to be filmed. And so in that way, we will present to all the fans the event. And also, it was our intention to kickstart other shows in this direction. So it's a historic show for us, and everything went well. It was a sold-out show, and the venue was really amazing. The sound was great, and it is something, as I'm telling you, something that we want to repeat as soon as possible.
That would be awesome. It would be great if you did like a tour, an actual tour. That would be awesome.
Well, this is more difficult, especially in the COVID era, or post-COVID era. It's difficult, but it will be great.
Yeah, and of course
we want to start again having this kind of shows.
All right, and of course we got the latest album, Modern Primitive. Definitely I've heard it a bunch of times. It's absolutely amazing. Can you talk to me about like the writing and recording process of this album and how that all came to be?
Well, that album was cursed to be inside this situation with the pandemic, and that affected everything. So it's an album that went through hell and back. We had to face unprecedented difficulties for us. It was a really time-consuming venture because we had to always pause things and postpone things and alter things. And the good things, the good thing from this situation is that we had plenty of time in our hands to listen to the material and also to make decisions more objectively without having someone pushing us to make the decisions. And so the album became really matured. It's a really tight album, really tight, and all of the ideas are really interconnected, as we had this time to make this refinement and make bridges between the various songs, considering the musical approach and the lyrical approach. And so it's a really dense album. When someone will listen to it a lot of times, will find out that there are a lot of elements and layers. And the more that you listen to the album, the more you realize the power of the album.
And would you consider like Modern Primitive to just be picking up where you left off after Codex Omega, or do you think that this album kind of like stands out in your catalog?
Well, I think it's the next step from Codex Omega. It's not something that it's completely different from Septicflesh. It is standing on the solid ground that we have created. It is the style that we have developed after all those years. We're talking about our 11th album right now. Yeah. So we have done a lot of different experimentations. And so at a point, we feel that it's also important to make a refinement of the ideas and not just chasing our tail, you know. And the refinement also is something that we want in order to focus on what is the most important stuff on music, and that's it, emotion. Because when you create music, your main goal is to create emotions, and when you are more confident and you are more standing on your own feet, you know how to achieve it more in a more depth, you know, and be really have this dynamics to the songs, these changes that someone experiences when, for instance, when you read a book on or when you are seeing a movie. We wanted to develop this kind of emotional journey, and we are really proud for the result of Modern Primitive. It's like a soundtrack for the modern dark age.
Yeah, and I agree. And like kind of going into like songwriting, because I noticed like your music is also very conceptual. Do you usually need to hear music and before you come up with a concept, or can a concept help determine the music itself?
I need to listen to the music. I always had the ideas. I have what I call a pool of ideas. I have paper or in electronic form a lot of ideas written down, and words and titles and concepts. But those ideas are nothing if I don't have the sound. I have to have something, an anchor point in order to create around that point. And so when I have the majority of the music, I don't need to have 100%, but I need to have at least 80% of the music. Then it's time for me to make the decisions about giving the songs specific themes. And then when I give the themes, it's a matter of refining and fine-tuning the words. And I do this also with the help of Seth. And I ask for Seth to provide me, for instance, some guides where he wants the words to the songs. And trying to make sounding words that resonate with what Seth has also in mind, and keep the theme that I have in my mind. So it's a tricky situation. It's not something easy to do, and it's also a matter of attempting things and trying things and see whatever fits better at the end.
Yeah, all right. And kind of like going into your live show, is there like a similar energy to playing live as to opposed to like recording an album, or are they kind of like almost two separate entities?
No, I think that the show it's also something that it has the element of the crowd. This is the main difference. When you are in the studio, you are you against yourself. You have to be really precise in your playing. You have to give 100% of your emotions and make the best performance that you can make for the recording. But also, it's something that you do it in phases. You don't play the whole album from point 1 to point 0 to point 10. On the live show, it's a different situation. You have ready the songs, you know what you play, and you have also to make a performance, a visual performance, and you have also to be in communication with the crowd. So it's a different situation.
Yeah, and of course, like now you have like 11 albums out now. Does it get like harder to put like a set list with every time
Yeah,
you have a new
yeah,
album?
yeah. This is the problem now that we have so many different type of songs to play, and also we have limitations on our time. For instance, when we play to festivals, you have a really strict timeline to play. And so we have to make some decisions and some strategic decisions, you can say. There are some songs that are all-time classics that we cannot leave out from the show. So they take the precious space, and then you have the space that you have to divide to the new material. And this is also something that you have to consider. And it's also a matter, of course, of pace, because if you have a lot of slow songs, for instance, then the show is not going to work well. So you have also to make some changes to the beats and have songs that present a wide range of your albums also.
All right, and I noticed you've also played with a lot of different bands, because I remember the first time I saw Septicflesh was 2018, where you did a tour with Dark Funeral, which is just typical black metal. But then I saw the Septicflesh on a tour with like Ensiferum, which is kind of like just like folk metal. Do you ever like notice like a different like crowd reaction depending like on the tours that you play?
Yes, of course, because the crowd differs from country to country. There are countries that the people are more extreme and more energetic, and countries that people are more thoughtful and enjoy the experience in a different way. That's cool, no matter how people perceive the show. The most important is that they will enjoy the show, and of course to have a connection with the crowd, not to be someone that is divided from a stage. So the band has to be also a part of the crowd, and vice versa. And it's a matter of interaction. Seth is charismatic as main singer, and he knows how to initiate a good reaction. And also, of course, we have our own atmosphere with the banners of Septicflesh and the different visual aspects that we carry together. Also, as we are gaining strength, and we invest more money to our shows and have more and more lights, for instance, and people that take care of the lights for us. And we have a team in order to have to give a really something really good to the audience.
All right, and the final question I want to talk about is like coming from Greece, because I think there's like a lot of great bands, like of course Rotting Christ, Biocancer. Hey, Star, was there like a musical scene in Greece? Because I always thought Greece also just has a great like architecture, great art, and everything. Does also like the scene in Greece help inspire the band sound, or is it the goal for Septicflesh to get outside of like Greece and play in front of like different audiences in different countries?
Well, we are not thinking about Greece when we create something. We just focused on our emotions and our ideas and our imagination. We are not thinking about a specific country, a specific crowd, whatever. We are not a band that makes everything like a strategy and overthinks things. Indeed, in Greece there are quite a few inspirational points. The architecture that you said, also the history is really rich, the Greek history, and there is also philosophy. There are things that we have inside of us as from early age. In Greece, we are learning about the past of the Greek people and the achievements and everything, and so there is a lot of inspiration. But I think that it is also a matter of having a solid foundation about general type of knowledge, and you cannot stick only to one kind of presentation. You have to have an open mind and learn. And there are also other countries and other thinkers and other artists that can provide input and inspiration as far as you have your eyes open and you are focused.
Awesome. So before we go, I just want to thank you for this interview. It was a great talking to you. There's just anything else with Septicflesh you'd like to promote within terms of the release of Modern Primitive in terms of like new tours and stuff, and when can we expect Septicflesh to come back to America?
Well, as you can guess, we will return to America. It's an inevitable. Sorry for the.
You're good.
Okay. Well, we have a lot of touring to do with the new album. Right now, we are considering the package. The timeline I cannot reveal right now. Yeah. But of course, you can bet that it will be soon enough.
Yeah, you'll tell me
First
when I
of
turn off the recorder.
but first, we have already announced a tour with Hypocrisy that will take place October and in Europe, and it will be a really great tour, I think, because the music of Hypocrisy and Septicflesh are really fitting together, and also we know we have some festivals to attend. We have also some live shows in Greece. But we have a lot of proposals that we are discussing right now. As you can imagine, with the new album, there is a lot of potential for us to play, and in a lot of places. I also want to thank you for this interview and for your time and your support.
Awesome. So everybody, Sotiris from the almighty Septicflesh. We'll see you next time.